Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at puremtgo.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of Mythicast. I'm your host Spencer, and this week I'm joined by a special guest who I have never beaten at Magic the Gathering, William Jackson. How's it going, William?
Good. How about you, Spencer?
I'm good. I'm tired. Having a toddler's hard, man. Don't ever do it. Don't ever have a toddler. Just skip that part when you become a parent. Just be like, all right, you go to my parents until you're 10 and then I'll get you back. So, William, you have... you're one of our younger guests today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of, what drives you to play Magic the Gathering and how long you've been playing?
So my name's William Jackson, as Spencer said, and I'm 13 years old, and I've been playing Magic the Gathering since last Christmas, so about a little over a year. And I really like to play Magic the Gathering as a competitive outlet to on Arena, on the ladder, or in on online tournaments or paper tournaments.
William, you've been playing Magic for not very long and already are up in the Mythic ranks. How do you think, what drives you to want this to be your competitive outlet? What made you pick Magic, and how do you use your time to improve? What are you doing that you think makes it so that you're able to compete at a pretty decent level at your age?
So I definitely I like Magic because of all the intricate interactions, and that's especially why I like the deck that we're talking about today. And just you have to think through a lot of things in order to win the game, and so that's definitely why I like Magic. And definitely how I do improve is I play a lot each day, and I record my winnings and losses to see how I'm doing. That definitely does help a lot to see that I'm progressing. And then I also like to play in tournaments. Have you been around Melee recently? The new website?
I have not been around MTG Melee. Is there a lot of cool stuff going on there for Arena?
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff for Arena. I think a little bit for online, but mostly Arena. And there's lots of different tournaments that you can play for each format on there, and that's sweet.
Awesome. That's so cool, man. Well, before we talk about our deck, I do want to mention our sponsor over at puremtgo.com. Don't forget to check out the entire Constructive Criticism Network over there. It's greatly appreciated what they do for us. And don't forget to check out their sponsor at mtgotraders.com. If you want to get in one of those MTG Melee Magic Online tournaments, MTGO Traders is the best place to buy Magic the Gathering cards online. They'll deliver them straight to your account. Super easy, super convenient, super awesome. Thank you once again so much to Pure MTGO. So today, we're going to talk about Jund Sac. This is a deck, William, that is creeping back up on people's radar a little bit. It was, mostly out of the format, I would say, the last, couple months. But, people have been talking about it. You might see it a little bit more on the ladder recently. Why don't you talk to me? What makes you want to pick up this deck again?
I think for sure that it just kind of goes underneath Luca. It kind of like the Teamer Adventures list that's been going around to try to stop Luca. You just don't have a lot of great targets that they want to steal, because if they try to steal one of your creatures, you can just sacrifice it, or they're forced to steal your oven, and then they don't get as much value. So they definitely do have a hard time having options to steal. Against other decks like Mono Red Obosh, it's got the Claim the Firstborn, which is really nice. So it seems to have a lot of favorable matchups about what's going on.
Awesome. So let's talk about the deck really quick. I'll read off the deck list for those who are listening at home. We have 4 Cauldron Familiar, 4 Gilded Geese, 3 Fiend Under Sin, 4 Priests of the Forgotten Gods, 4 Mayhem Devil, 3 Woe Strider, 2 Corvald, 3 Claim the Firstborn, 4 Witch's Oven, 1 Bullis' Citadel, and 4 Trail of Crumbs. This deck is playing 24 lands, 4 of which are Fabled Passage, and 1 of which is a Castle Lochtwain. The sideboard is 1 Claim the Firstborn for the 4th one, 3 Duress, 2 Soul Guide Lantern, 2 Cinder Vines, 2 Embereth Shieldbreaker, 2 Scorching Dragonfire, 2 Massacre Girl, and 1 more Bullis' Citadel. So William, talk to me about what are the 3 main key cards in this deck?
So definitely if you've ever played this deck before, definitely Mayhem Devil. You get a lot of triggers off of that. It's the one that deals 1 damage whenever you sacrifice anything, or an opponent sacrifices something, and you get to deal 1 damage to any target. So that can definitely, against smaller aggro decks, just kind of clear the board. Pretty good against Luca, because when they go to activate Luca on a token, you can kill the token in response, and they don't get their Agent of Treachery. It's good against, just a lot of stuff, just killing stuff, and then also sometimes just finishing your opponent off.
One thing that I'm noticing in this deck, which is pretty interesting, is you're kind of all in on these Claim to Firstborns as interaction in this deck, and there's no Assassin's Trophy anywhere in the 75.
The Claim the Firstborns, they're for the most part good. There's a few matchups where they're not great, like Temur Reclamation. You don't get a whole lot of targets other than their sharks from the Shark Typhoon.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it can get a lot of different stuff out of the way. I guess I haven't considered Assassin's Trophy, but I think that could definitely be a very important card that that we could add.
So talk to me kind of what this deck does well and kind of what it struggles with.
So it definitely does well against, like I've been saying, against Luca. It just blows out creature matchups. Anything that's trying to try to go wide on you, you just have to Claim the Firstborns and the Mayhem Devils just to blow them out.
Right.
Temur Reclamation is a hard matchup just because a lot of your stuff isn't quite as good as it usually is. Like Mayhem Devil usually is just kind of going towards the face, and
right.
That's still pretty good, but not as good. And they've got counters for your big stuff like Corvald and Bullis' Citadel. So that's definitely a rough matchup.
Is the mana base pretty solid? I mean, I think you're playing less lands than the previous versions of this deck. What do you think the strength and weaknesses of this mana in this format are?
So the weaknesses are definitely just the shock lands. You just do a lot of damage to yourself, and that can definitely just add up. The deck does have a lot of incremental life gain to make up for that, but yeah, the shock lands definitely do hurt. The strength, though, there's definitely a lot of strength in the Castle Lochtwain. For those who've been playing with that, that's definitely very strong to when you start to stall out. And then Fabled Passage is probably just the best utility land because it says sacrifice it. And so if you have a Corvald down, you get to draw a card and put a counter on him, or Mayhem Devil deals damage, and just a lot of different triggers for that.
Awesome. Talk to me, what do you think the coolest interaction in this deck is right now?
It is probably, since the addition of Bullis' Citadel, that wasn't really in the original decks when this deck first came out. But with Bullis' Citadel, you get a kind of storm off with just playing a lot of the top cards off your library. And since the life gain in the deck is pretty strong, you don't really fall that low on life. And then since the Bullis' Citadel says you can sacrifice 10 non-land permanents to drain your opponent for 10, with the Mayhem Devil, that you get 10 sacrifice triggers off that, and you can just deal your opponent 20 damage, which is usually enough.
Talk to me about Fiend Under Sin. This is a new addition to the deck that it isn't. I mean, isn't that normal? Tell me about that card and kind of what purpose it serves in the deck.
It's very efficient on 2 mana. We don't have a whole lot of 2-drops. We've got Priest of the Forgotten Gods. But our 2-mana slot's a little weak, and then also it's just usually in the late game a huge beater because it gets +1/+1 for each creature card in the graveyard. So usually against like these Luca decks where they wipe your board a couple of times and stuff like that, you can definitely just like reset with this like huge beater. But then also against like one of the matchups that we struggle with is Team Reclamation. And it can go underneath their counter spells by being able to sacrifice creatures to tutor out stuff out of your deck, tutor out other creatures out of your deck for just paying mana and tapping it. So you can tutor out multiple like Mayhem Devils, even if you have a lot of mana like a Corvold and stuff, to get underneath counter spells. So then you can tutor out these big threats and not have them countered.
Awesome. That's so cool. Talking about what like we kind of talked about this a little bit. But is there deck outside of Luca that you sit down across from and you're like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to be playing against.
Most creature matchups, like I mentioned, Obosh can go a little bit. It's probably you're probably favored in the matchup, but not like immensely so. Other matchups, Cycling. That one's very nice with the sideboard Soul Guide Lanterns, and then just being able to kind of just crush their creatures with your Mayhem Devils and your Claim the Firstborns. That one's definitely a favorable matchup, especially post sideboard.
Nice. You mentioned specifically Team being kind of a tough matchup. Do you have a plan for that matchup post board?
Just try to like go extremely fast, put out a lot of threats each turn. Just to run them out of cards. Fiend Under Sin, like I mentioned, was very big for the matchup. Being able to go underneath their counter spells. The big part that we struggle with is the expansion explosion, not for lethal, but just to refill their hand when we both run out of resources and then they just get a hand refill. That's definitely the part that we struggle with. So yeah, we just try to go underneath of them.
Awesome. William, I want to go off script a little bit. We got some feedback on our last episode that people want us to dive deeper into the sideboards. And so what I would like to do is kind of just go over your sideboard and you talk to people kind of what it's for, where you're bringing it in, stuff like that. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Claim the Firstborn. Obviously, this is probably coming in against small creature decks. Why don't you talk about kind of what you're thinking of boarding out typically in those matchups and what you're bringing this in for?
So yeah, I'm bringing in Claim the Firstborn, usually, depending on how fast the aggro deck is, usually cutting some of the top end stuff. Definitely Bolas's Citadel, don't want to lose life against aggressive decks. Sometimes Corvold too. He's a nice blocker, but he is slow. So like those type of our top end is for the most part going out.
Yeah, Duress coming in against, is it Bant Ramp the main one? Or is there other stuff?
Bant Ramp, Team Reclamation, Jeskai Luca, it's all good against those. Just with a lot of spells, especially stuff like with Luca, fires that we really need to get rid of because that kind of just overpowers us. So stuff like that to get rid of and to cut for Duress. Usually, like Priest of the Forgotten Gods isn't great against those matchups with a few creatures, or especially Luca with just their tokens that they'll just sacrifice easily. So stuff like that.
Is Cinder Vines coming in a lot of the same spots for this matchup?
A lot of the same spots.
Okay. Is that true of also Bolas's Citadel?
Yeah. Bolas's Citadel definitely helps with Team Reclamation. It's kind of an awkward spot because it could get countered, but if you land it, it just definitely just overpowers them. Same with like Luca and Banagor, yeah.
So for Endbreath Shieldbreaker, what artifacts are you specifically worried about? Is this just the mirror, or is there somewhere else this is coming in?
So that's one of the sideboard slots that that I'm kind of thinking about changing out. Yeah, definitely for the mirror, but you don't see a whole lot of the mirror. And then also like the Luris sacrifice decks only run just Witch's Oven and not a whole lot of other like sacrifice artifact-based synergies. So this is definitely one that I'm not sure about, but it's definitely good for other cat mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that it was probably a lot better when you saw a lot of Embercleaves running around, but with Embercleave kind of going away, it makes less sense. That makes some sense to me. And kind of, you've already mentioned the Soul Guide Lanterns are for the cycling deck. What are the the Massacre Girls? Are they coming in against the mirror and other creature decks, or is there somewhere else that you're specifically looking to bring them in?
Yeah, mirror creature decks. I still haven't decided on stuff like it kind of depends on how your opponent's playing with stuff like Luca and Team Reclamation, because if they're laying down their Shark Typhons and getting a bunch of creatures, you definitely do want a type of wipe. And but one area where it definitely does shine is against the Jeskai Winota decks. You can just kind of wipe their whole board, and it's definitely very good there. It's nice with just interaction with Trail of Crumbs, being able to get it off of the trail. So it's definitely nice there.
Awesome. And talk to me about Scorching Dragonfire. Where is this coming in? And does the are you killing planeswalkers with this ever, or is this mostly for creature decks? Talk to me about it.
So you could bring it against planeswalkers. But a lot of the planeswalkers don't hurt us as much as most decks, as they hurt other decks. Like we just get around Narset with stuff like Bolas' Citadel and Trail of Crumbs, not drawing cards, but just like looking at the top of our deck and getting us cards. Teferi, we're not playing a whole lot of instant speed interaction, so you could definitely like bring it in to kind of like hit a Teferi, so he doesn't, because his bounce is definitely very hurtful for us, but just his static isn't great against us. But it is definitely good against like creature matchups. You could consider bringing it in against Luca to try to kill their tokens in response to his activation, but usually Mayhem Devil is good enough for that, so I usually don't bring it in there. But definitely, yeah, just more creature matchups.
So you're Mythic right now with this deck. Talk to me really quickly, like where, if one person listening to the show is like, all right, I'm gonna try William's deck out, what's like the one big thing that they should know going in?
It's definitely you have to pay attention a lot during the games. It's less like like mono red aggro takes less concentration. Where this deck takes a lot of concentration, you have to get a lot of triggers right. It's definitely easier on Arena than in Paper. In Paper, when I played this before, before after Oko, when this deck was first popularized, you definitely just have to look at a lot of triggers and just pay attention and kind of just like take a moment and look at your board and see, can I kill my opponent?
Awesome. Would you play this deck moving forward? You're grinding those Mythic. I think you said you're at 98% right now, trying to get into that top 1200 right now. Are you going to keep trying this deck?
Yeah, I think for sure. I definitely do like it a lot because I like being a technical player, but I do also think that it has a lot of favorable matchups. I'd say I wouldn't want to play it if I'm seeing a lot of Team Reclamation, but where I still see quite a bit of Luca and stuff like that,
sure,
I still think it has a lot of favorable matchups.
Well, William, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you guys reaching out and be willing to move stuff around for me. If people wanted to find you, if they see you in the queues, where can they find you at?
Just at my at the Twitter account, WScottJackson at Gmail.
Awesome. And is there anything you want to give a shout out to, or anything that you want to plug?
I'd like to shout out you for putting me on the show. Definitely a cool experience, and thank you so much.
Thank you. You should shout out your dad, man. He's well, you can find me at Specific Nate. You can find the show at Arena Mythic Cast. Once again, William, thank you so much for coming on. You can find the entire Constructive Criticism Network over at constructivecriticism.com. And we'll see everybody next week with another episode of Arena Mythic Cast. I just want to take a minute to thank William so much for coming on. It was a delight to have him. He's such a cool kid. If you want to join the show, don't forget to tweet at Arena Mythicast when you hit Mythic, and we'll see if we can fit you in and get you on the show. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys all next week with another episode of Arena Mythicast.